Before you get too excited, just know today is a vloggy video. You may or may not be interested in what I have to say. Either way, I appreciate you for tuning in, so thanks for that. I want to talk about music and maybe why I like what I like. And that might sound like a weird topic, but I think I just figured a piece of the puzzle out that I hadn't realized. I'm 50, and I am Generation X, which interestingly enough, might be the first generation in 75 years who's comfortable with saying they're Generation X. Baby boomers don't like to say they're baby boomers. Millennials definitely don't like to say they're millennials. I don't know if Gen Z is comfortable in their own skin. They might be, because at least they're not being labeled as millennials. I'm not picking on anybody. But you know how hipsters don't like to be called hipsters? It's kind of like that. Except Gen X is like, we're proud. We're like, yep, Gen X, that's who we are. We're an interesting breed. Because, I was born in 71, and through the 70s, I was hearing things produced by people like Alan Parsons, like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. I was hearing some really cool R&B, heard the first electronic dance music with Giorgio Moroder and Donna Summer, cool rock and roll with Van Halen. Then once we got into the 80s, I'm hearing new wave, Duran Duran, Prince, Michael Jackson's coming into his own more. Madonna's doing interesting things with Jelly Bean Benitez, and now Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards are producing with Chic. We've got all these cool things going on. So there's always this progression in music. Things are always changing. Now, even though the music of the 80s I don't think was as sophisticated as a lot of the music of the 70s, it was unique. And the reason it was so unique is because there were sounds in the music that I had never heard before. What I'm talking about are things like drum machines. There was always a new drum machine that was coming out, and producers would experiment with them and try new things with them, add reverb or do something with them to make them different. It's almost like they get a piece in the studio, like, hey, this is interesting, let's see what we can do with it, and they'd write a song around an experiment they do. You'd have a brand new sound. Sampling. Oh my gosh, 8-bit sampling when I first heard it with like Yes and ZZ Top and Art of Noise with 8-bit Fairlight samples. That was really interesting. It was gritty, but it was a new way to do music. Samples. They weren't good, but they didn't have to be good. They were interesting. Sometimes they were presented in the raw form. Other times they were processed to sound like something you'd never heard before. Just beautiful sounds. Pet Shop Boys did that kind of stuff. A lot of the Stuck Aiken Waterman was like that. And then everything kind of went postmodern after a while with Nirvana and such. And that's when I kind of tuned out. I'm like, you know what? This is kind of rock, kind of punk. But I've heard really good punk before. I've heard this, like Ramones, Sex Pistols, that kind of thing. And I've heard really good kind of simple new wave songs like The Cars and such. And I've heard rock, of course. So this is nothing new. This is just repackaged stuff I've already heard. And I don't think it's done as well as the stuff I heard before. Sample rates are incredible now. So most of the time, anything that somebody samples sounds real. It doesn't sound fake or processed. And that's great, it's perfected. But, I don't know, for some reason some of the magic's gone from that. My tastes began to get a little eccentric. And I started going deeper into dance and house, which I was into already, but I was going deeper into it. So of course I like melody and harmony. I like tunes that are like either kind of dark and sexy or fun and dancey. That's kind of where I roll, one or the other. But it's occurred to me, or become more obvious to me, with Weeknd's Blinding Lights, when it hit last year, that there are sounds in there I've heard before. Not quite presented how Weeknd presented them, but I've heard them. Like Aha's Take on Me. Did a little different. I like how he did. I like what he added to it. That was a sound I hadn't heard before. And that's what's missing with today's music. And I know a lot of times you'll hear people from my generation or baby boomers or whatever talk about how today's music sucks. Well, I love new music. If I am not getting a constant stream of new music, I don't feel complete. I have to have it. I love going back and listening to stuff from the 70s and the 80s. You guys know I do. But I don't like to live there. I like to go back there when there's nothing else to do. But when there's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to listen to that I'm really enjoying, stuff that's coming out, be it EDM or Top 40 or whatever, I don't listen to yacht rock. I don't listen to disco. I don't listen to new wave. I'm too busy in the now because that's where I got to be. If I'm not there, I'm not happy. Save Your Tears is another really good Weekend song. And it's almost got like a Traveling Wilburys feel to it. And then there's some Howard Jones in there. And I hear Flying Lizards in there. And I hear maybe some Duran Duran in there. And maybe even some like Psychedelic Furs or something. It's a really interesting song. And I liked it. But then I heard his remix with Ariana Grande. And I'm like, oh, that's the one. That's it. Take the one you did without her and pretend it didn't happen. Just do the one with Ariana Grande. That's a beautiful duet. Her vocal adds so much to it. It reminds me of, 20 years ago when Moby did Southside. I think it was the Play album. And then there was the remix with Gwen Stefani, and it was a duet. Oh, forget about it. That's it. That's the single. And it was the single. That's the one that was so popular. In fact, the one with Ariana Grande I've heard played on Chicago radio stations lately. I've been down there, and that's the version I've heard. And that's the one that really caught my attention. I came back, and I'm listening to just him doing it. And I'm like, it's okay. It's not as good as I remembered it. Then I hear the Ariana Grande and him doing it. I'm like, yep, there you go. That's it. New sounds, or sounds presented in a new way. It's not that I want to hear retro sounds. I don't. I want to hear new sounds. But if there are no new sounds, then take the old sounds that we kind of forgot about and haven't been overused and do something new and interesting with them. It was the same thing for me, I guess, starting probably about 20 years ago when the big dance music sample thing happened with Madison Avenue and, all of it. And even hip-hop was doing it. A lot of samples. They were using a lot of disco stuff from back in the 70s and 80s. Daft Punk was doing it. I love that. I ate that up. That was an incredible time for music for me. It was new to me. It wasn't that I wanted to hear the old music. It was just being presented in a new way. And a lot of them were weirdo tracks that we hadn't heard in the first place the first time around. So I enjoyed that. But, when it comes to things like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and things like that, I get bored. And it's not that they're bad songs. If you haven't heard the old school stuff that I have heard done well, then you'll probably hear that and think, yeah, that's pretty good. But if you have heard it and then you hear Cardi B kind of rehashing something I've heard for 30 years over and over again, just regurgitating it, it's very boring. To me, I'm bored. I'm not offended. I'm not appalled. I'm bored out of my mind. If that makes sense. Now, if Cardi B would do something different that I'd never heard before, I might pay attention. Maybe not. I don't know. Just a video. I might not even post it. I'm becoming like Prince. All these videos are going into the vault and no one ever sees them. So I do a lot of these. This is like the third video I've shot today. And I'm not posting them. I don't know why. I don't know. Anyway, that's it, guys. I appreciate you watching, as always. Just a weirdo vlog tonight. We'll see you next time. Got a gig coming up Saturday. I'm going to chill tomorrow. I'm not going to do anything. And then at Gig Saturday, we'll do a gig log. And then we'll do a Q&A video like we did last time. Should be fun. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you then. Practice and enjoy.